we got us a little problem here. As you can see, our garden hose spigot is leaking. Now it might be hard to tell from your view, but it's actually weeping out from this cap up here on what's called the vacuum brake. The vacuum brake on your garden hose is essentially just a backflow preventing device. It's basically if you had like your hose dipped down in a barrel of chemical for some dumb reason, or maybe more practically speaking, if you had like one of those Miracle Grow sprayers with the fertilizer chemical in it that you attach to your hose. If you were using something like that and you had your hose cut on and you were using a ridiculous amount of water in your house and like a couple other conditions were met, if all these conditions were met, under very, very rare circumstances, you could potentially siphon some of that chemical into your drinking water, and it could be a bad thing. That's why most places you have codes that require a backflow preventer or a vacuum brake, which comes on most hose spigots. Now in this case, that's what's leaking under the cap on ours. And they make rebuild kits for these. We've tried all sorts of them, and long story short is we got a modular house. This is a real cheap oddball faucet to begin with, and there's no way to fix it. We've tried. So we're just gonna put a new one on. If you're a dummy when it comes to the plumbing, you came to the right place.
First thing we're gonna do is take the screws out. Since we're dealing with PEX, we've got some play. Make sure you turn the water off before you do this. In our case, we had to turn the water off to the whole house, and the location of this could vary, but it's usually in the basement, or in our case, at the water softener.
Now for the horrible part that we've been dreading. We gotta go into the crawl space and crawl the full length of the house to get over to the spigot. Let's go. So right there is what we've got. As you can see, we've got PEX that runs and crimps onto this brass female 1/2" adapter. Then you have the threaded part, the threaded male end of the old Sillcock valve. It threads into that.
Now when you're shopping for these new valves, they come in different lengths. That's really the only thing you need to know is how long it is, and that basically ensures that you're going to match up properly with your connection point. If you get one too long, it won't seat up against the siding on the house, and if you don't have play like we have and you get one too short, well then you're going to come up too short. Absolutely make sure you use 2 wrenches when you're doing this so that you don't have anything snap. A little bit of residual water is normal when you first take the thing loose. If it comes blasting out, you messed up really bad. We're going to apply a couple wraps of Teflon tape on the threads to ensure we get a good seal when we connect the new valve. Once we fed the new valve through, it's back under the house to connect it. Now it really helps to have a spotter or mark it in some way so that you know which direction it needs to be facing outside. Obviously, if the spout was pointing upward, that would be no good, and I can't see that from down here. They couldn't send new stainless screws with the new valve. It was just too much to ask. So we had to put the old rusted ones back in, which really bothers me, but until we can get new ones, this'll do for now. I'm not really sure why I got fire engine red for the handle color, but whatever. It looks pretty new and shiny.
So yeah, here's the old one. There you can see the vacuum brake. Now, as I mentioned, our new one doesn't have that, and you can actually get vacuum breakers that are aftermarket. You install them by simply threading them on to here, and then you hook your hose onto that. So they're so easy, anybody can put them on, and it accomplishes the same thing as this thing that's built in to your spigot here, only it's easier to change them down the road if they fail, whereas this one's built into the valve and you can have troubles like we did. So actually, I kind of like going that route. We'll probably get one and put on ours since we don't have one. But both of these are frost-free or frost-proof, whatever. They're basically anti-freeze. They're not going to freeze and bust, ideally, in the winter time. And, you know, you do still have to disconnect your hose from them. But the way these work is that when you run this valve shut, it actually closes off the valve way back here. So what opens and shuts is way back here. Your exterior wall sits right here, and what's in here on the house ideally is going to be warm, and it's not going to freeze and bust from here on back. Whereas if this just closed right here, then you'd have all that water sitting right there at your exterior wall, and you know, you get a good cold day, block wall, you'd freeze and bust. So that's how these work in a nutshell. They're not the cheapest things in the world. 40 bucks is about what you can expect to pay for a cheap one, which is what we did. You can go all the way up to probably close to $100 if you want to get a high-end one of these. Now we're going to be taking this back because we didn't use it, but this is a 1/2-inch PEX connector by 1/2-inch female nominal pipe thread connector. Basically, it's a brass fitting that we could have threaded onto our new valve, and then it could have pushed onto the PEX if we chose to go that route. Now, the way it 90'd there, it would have not been very convenient to do that. It would have actually been more of a hassle to go this route. But if it had run straight in and we had enough extra, we could have just put this on outside, took this in the crawl space, pushed it on, and we'd have been done. No tools at all needed under the house. So that's another route you can go. More than likely, you're going to be connecting to PEX or copper. And if you got copper, you're probably going to have another female threaded port that this goes in. Just make sure you support it good and tight with your wrenches when you're changing these out. And make sure you leak check afterwards. We still got to go back under the house and make sure there's no drips. But otherwise, it seems to be working good. You know, a plumber would have showed up and probably charged at least 150, 200 bucks to do a job like this, especially in a crawl space. If you watch this video and you can pull this off yourself, this project cost us a whopping 40 bucks, one and done. Any questions or comments, drop them down below. Good luck.